Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod podcast. We're here for another team season preview, and this time the team is the Detroit Lions. And with us today, a returning guest, he came on last year for the same season preview in the same team. It's Detroit Lions and Marek Larwood. How are you, mate?
All right. Was this the record numbers podcast last year of all of them? Did this get the most listens of all of the season previews?
I've not checked if I'm honest. I can go back and check, but no, I couldn't tell you.
What are we talking? 1 million people, 2 million people?
I think maybe even 10 million, maybe 20 million. That's what I'm going for, yeah.
I know that Dan Campbell listens to this a lot of the time before he does his 53-man roster. He tunes in. He says, well, I'm not sure. What does that bald Englishman who looks like an egg think? And yes, he does. A lot of the things I say in his podcast, you'll see happen within the next 2 weeks.
I mean, I've heard rumblings that, he goes to the gym in the morning, has his 20 or 30 shots of espresso in the morning, goes to the gym and plays his podcast in the background. So I think he gets pumped for each week by listening to listeners to this podcast with you in it, but also watching Celebrity on ITV2 and really just getting
don't
full
talk
Marek
about
Larwood
that.
experience.
Full Marek. I can't believe that's the show that I'm going to be remembered for. A glittering career for all the TV shows and films. Celebrities the one. You're right. Listeners won't have heard of it.
I mean,
and let's just talk about American football, please.
Maybe they play Pooh-Man cards on the journey to.
That is it. Plug it. That's what I want. I want some plugs for products that I have made, so I can make some money out of the podcast. Yes, very
Absolutely.
good. Pooh-Man cards, the greatest game for 4 and upwards. Why not go to poohman.co.uk? I'm sure Dan Campbell's bought a copy for everyone who makes the foreign roster.
And just don't press .com either. You'll get some awfully different website.
You will get something bad.
So, yeah, not recommended to any of our listeners. Don't press poohman.com. It's not recommended. So we are here to talk all things Detroit Lions. Of course, whole different expectations to last season. I mean, last season was sort of people were saying the Lions, they could be a dark horse, they could surprise people by getting a few wins, but turns out you really were one win away from the playoffs. And, if Seattle had lost to the Rams, I think it was the Rams they played, you could have made it by beating Green Bay. So the expectations changed a lot in a year. Now, do you think that changes the whole mentality of players? Because it's a whole different, it's one thing being a team where you're the underdogs and there's no real pressure on you and stuff like that, to go from that to what it's like now, and a lot of people are saying you could win the division and even be a Super Bowl dark horse from the NFC. Do you think that changes their mentality in terms of going from maybe being the hunters to being the hunted?
It's such an odd thing how people get behind sort of runs in sport, because it was at the start of last season, for people who follow the Lions, started terribly as usual. I think Dan Campbell had the first season where he had sort of a free pass just to rebuild the side, and there was mild expectation that it would be improvements, but it started diabolically, and they were everyone's darlings because they were on Hard Knocks, and everyone thought, oh, is Dan Campbell's unconventional style of almost being one of the players and being sort of uber excitable, and he's not the sort of clipboard quiet coach. He's there in everyone's faces and trying to build a whole new culture. And it seems to be going downhill pretty fast. And then there was a remarkable turning point when we won, I think, what was it, 7 of the last 8, something crazy. So suddenly they become now almost overhyped, I think. And the best thing that can happen, the first game's against the Chiefs, which is obviously the biggest, the toughest game of the whole schedule. If they win that, the pressure's going to be ridiculous and go crazy. But I think they'll probably lose that, and that might take the edge off the expectations. But in reality, the NFC, they haven't won the NFC North. So I started supporting the Lions about 1989, I think before you were born, 88, 89. when they had Barry Sanders and people like Rodney Peete was their quarterback around that time. And they were their glory years, basically just riding off the back of Barry Sanders. If you've seen his highlights, if you don't know who he is for English fans, it's incredible. Just look up Barry Sanders highlights reel. It was a phenomenal talent, but they haven't won. I think we lost to the Cowboys or something. We beat the Redskins. It was 1993. We got to the conference championship. I think they haven't won the division for something like this. The longest drought, I think 30 years. I can't remember the exact figure. They haven't won the division in. And that's out of four. That's back then. It might have been 5 teams. I think the Bucks were in that division for a bit. But out of 4 teams to not win a division in 30 years, the odds of that are, someone work it out. But so the expectations this year are the most they've been since the early 90s. And mainly because Rodgers has gone. The Bears are still, although they've improved slightly, are in a rebuilding season. And the Vikings, as everyone will probably admit, had a fluke season last year. I think they're probably the worst team to ever go 13-4 or get 13 wins in the season. So this is the biggest opportunity the Lions have had, even if they had an average team. And I think the team is better than average. I'll stop speaking now for a bit.
Well, I was just looking up the while you're talking, I was looking up on Google the answer to your thing, and I'm looking at here. Now, this article was from 2018 that said that they've had 25 straight seasons without a division title. So that means that's 30 years now, pretty much, without a division title.
I was correct.
And looking at the playoff win drought in sort of wins in the playoff game, me and your team are the top 2. The Lions have got 31 years without a playoff win, and the Dolphins are next with 22. So it's even between those two, the top 2. That's like a 9-year difference between yourselves and the next longest drought. So that just shows even more just how long it's been without a playoff win.
Yeah, I'm 47 years old now. I was 16 when they last won the playoffs. That's incredible. How old are you, Andy?
I was born in 95, so I'm 28. So that means
so you've not in the course of your lifetime.
No. I mean, I've never seen Dolphins win a playoff game either. I mean, the last one came in 2000, I think it was, but even then, I was way too young to even know any.
Who cares? Who cares about stupid Dolphins? Can you swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Go for it.
No, I just wanted to know.
Yeah,
you can talk about the Dolphins in your own shitting time.
Were you saying was it Lions fans when you went to a game? Was it Lions fans or Dolphins fans were drink driving and throwing cans? Was it the Dolphins fans or the Lions?
No,
fans?
that was the Bills.
The Bills, was it? Oh, the Bills. Okay.
I went to see the Dolphins play at Ralph Ellis Stadium, with the against the Bills, and the Bills fan. It was a night game. And there were some Dolphins fans in the predominantly Bills stand. And they were just throwing beer cans at their, like full beers at their heads.
I would love to have been there for that. That would be amazing to watch.
3 or 4 people got arrested when we were there. And everyone was absolutely hammered. Yeah, the guy who gave us a lift to the stadium was clearly pissed. And so Ralph Ellis Stadium is miles out of Buffalo. And I think most people in that stadium were drinking heavily or smashed out their faces. So definitely loads of drink driving. That's what I think I was talking about.
That's no shock to me because I actually went to Detroit last year on Thanksgiving for the Lions against Bills.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was amazing. But everyone I was with, apart from me, seemed to be absolutely off their face. Everyone seemed to be completely smashed. But yeah, what an experience that was.
What a stadium! It's a surprise, isn't it? Because Detroit's a shithole, and then there's the baseball stadium right next to the Lions Stadium. And inside, when you go inside, it's literally like stepping out of a ghetto into it's crazy. Do you not think? Or
yeah, I mean, I even more so the fact that I was actually staying with friends I'd made in a mansion in Detroit, which is something I don't think you can normally put those two together. A mansion in Detroit. I didn't think those two would ever mix. But to go from that to then tailgating and driving through, even when you arrived in Detroit, we drove past all these cars, and it was just didn't look nice at all. And then when we got this taxi from where we were staying to the stadium, and it was just, it was not a nice watch. Not a nice viewing, I must say. Walking through some of that Detroit and driving through it, and then and then you go to and you go to the stadium itself, and it is just incredible. I mean, I will say that like it was the most condensed I felt walking through a stadium in terms of getting to your seat. I went to a lot of games last year. Most of them, you'd have a lot of there's so much free space to walk around. Where I found whether you're going getting a drink, or whether you're going for a queue at the toilet, or whether you're walking in and out the stadium, I did find it was awfully condensed, which I found in a way it's quite a good thing. It shows a bit of hostility in the atmosphere. But yeah, I thought it was incredible. It was I even saw someone got booed at half time. They had like a little performance in the I think it was Bebe Rexha was performing at half time, and she got booed by all the fans because she was it was terrible sound. It was awful performance.
Oh, see, when I went to see the Lions there, it was when they were still unpopular. Because last season they were selling out. When I went, it was half full. Not,
Really?
not it wasn't rammed, so you probably didn't have that condensed feeling in the stands that you had when you went. So
Yeah, yeah.
when in the stadium.
But yeah, what experience though. I mean, I did touch on it when I did my episode when I reviewed my time in Detroit. But for anyone listening who hasn't listened to that, do give it a check out because it is just it was something I think to experience Thanksgiving in America had to be either Dallas or Detroit. It just had to be for the tradition. And yeah, what an experience. But I wouldn't go there for a holiday, Detroit. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Did you go around the street where they've all painted and decorated the whole? It's a basically empty street that's turned into an art project. So they've decorated all the houses. They've painted them all weird colors, like covered one in complete cuddly toys. All the paving stones are painted different colors. It's like stepping into some strange Wizard of Oz like land because it was completely abandoned. They've used it as an art project. So, and when I was there, I met a bloke who just bought a flat in a building for $7,000
Oh
because
wow.
it was just empty. This is like 2012, so 10 years ago, because no one wanted to live there. So I don't know if
Wow.
it's improved a bit. Anyway, we should talk about the well, we have to talk. Who cares? Who cares? They're just bits of meat, aren't they? They're just hunks of meat jumping around at each other. They all get brain damage and then forgotten about by their by their sides.
Especially running backs. They're
Yeah.
but yeah, speaking of the Lions, ins and outs in the off season. The main ins include CJ Gardner Johnson, Graham Glasgow, Marvin Jones, David Montgomery, Emmanuel Mosley, and Cameron Sutton. And the main outs, I couldn't really find three major outs in the Sean Elliott, Jamal Williams, and DJ Chark. And in the draft, which for me was the most interesting part of the off season, we took Jahmyr Gibbs. He traded back from 6 to 12, took him the running back from Alabama, 12th overall. You took Jack Campbell, the Iowa linebacker, 18th overall. You took Sam Laporta, the tight end, 34th overall. You took Alabama safety Brian Branch, 45th overall. And then one more, I won't say all of them, there's too many, but 68th overall, you took Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, the QB. So, what was your thought on the draft? Because, no one thought you'd take a running back, and it's even more surprising the fact that you could have taken Bijan Robinson at 6. We took him at 12, obviously traded back to get one at 12. What were your thoughts on the draft? Because that seemed to get a lot of negative reactions from a few Lions fans I know on Twitter. They thought maybe they could have gone a different position or got running back later on in the draft. But what was your thoughts overall on the draft as well as the ins and outs at the Lions?
Well, I think that they were trying to get Bijan Robinson, even though I can't say his name properly, because he's the premier. I think he's the real difference maker from what I sort of saw, and I presume they thought, "Oh, we'll get him," but the Falcons took him, and they were, "Oh, what are we going to do?" They traded Swift to the Eagles, which I was surprised at, which made me think that they realised somewhere during last season that he wasn't going to be the sort of the player that they'd hoped, as usual with the running backs. So they really bigged up Jamal Gibbs. I can't say any of the names. But who knows? I was surprised because you could have probably got him at 18. So it was weird going for him at a running back that high because I don't think he was in anyone's top 20. So that was a prize. And also, the linebacker was a bit. Jack Campbell was a bit of a reach as well. But according to what I've read about the preseason, he's been one of the most impressive players. So they did need help there, and they obviously went out and they improved their secondary in free agency. So that's good. It was nice to see Marvin Jones come back to the Lions. It was nice to see Graham Glasgow come back, who is the offensive lineman, because we didn't. It's just nice to see these players who were there and good players for us almost come back for a year and do this sort of glory run. I think we've got a wide receiver we drafted the year before called Jameson Williams. I think it was from Alabama or something. He was supposed to be a real speedster, but he's just been done for gambling. He just sounds like a wide receiver who's an absolute moron, to be honest. And he's one of those ones who's just, I think, probably just stupid because he doesn't seem to be getting the routes in the preseason. Nate Sudfeld and him had no connection at all in their preseason games. But who knows? Maybe he'll turn things around. Yeah, they're sort of going for it this year. So it feels like, you get that. You can attract before in sort of the history of the Lions, we wouldn't necessarily attract good free agents. But now we've got these decent, you can see, they like the culture of the Lions. Obviously, all the players talk to each other. I think have turned around and they all want to be playing. They've got probably, what's the average career? 4 or 5 years. They want to be playing playoff football, and the Lions are in a prime position to do that. So they're attracting more elite players who are willing to get on better deals and getting people like Marvin Jones and Graham Glasgow come back to get that player experience. So I think the draft I was underwhelmed by, but then again, I don't follow. It's such a. I've sort of got a problem with the reporting of the draft. It's that dead season bit from January until May. None of us know anything about, especially over in the UK. You don't know anything about these players other than someone's picked them out in the top 20 and ordered them from what they think of them. It's just speculation, and it's just a news story really to keep you interested. And then you start thinking, I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good. All you've seen is like 10 minutes of highlights for them. You've not, that's all pretty much. There's hundreds of players, and people talk about the draft as if they've seen more than 10 minutes on each of the players. No one has. No one's gone through and spent a whole day analysing the tape, interviewing the players that you don't know. And yet everyone's an expert on drafts, and people know absolutely fuck all about the draft. It's just a way of them being able to talk about their lists. And they send them, and I hate all this endless, literally, here's, Scott so-and-so's 1.7 draft. And it's completely changed completely changed in 3 months. So what, the other 6 were just bullshit then? It's just a total waste of our lives following the draft. It's a waste of everyone's life following anything on the draft and pretending you know about it. Just wait until they start playing. Go and read, rather than read some dickheads drafting about players you no idea about. Go and read a book by a great author. That's my advice.
I mean, I get what you mean completely. I mean, even the Gridiron magazine, every year they go through the best 50 prospects, and obviously these people there, they are experts. They do watch college football, but at the same time, you just don't know what happens in the year. Because I looked one year, the year before Bo got drafted first overall, and he wasn't even in the top 30 or 50 prospects. So, I'm guilty of myself. I only really watch highlights on YouTube or TikTok these days. And yeah, I think there's far too many mock drafts, far too many, as you say, people claiming to be experts. And, and I think as well, I think almost, you'd rather not any mock drafts, because it sort of kills the surprise a little bit, because you hear about 15 people saying they're going to take this guy at second overall, it's going to come. Whereas if you have no mock drafts, no prior draft coverage, I know it's impossible to do these days, it would make it so much more exciting. If you have no idea who's going to go where, and you have no inkling of who's going to go where, then I think it'll make it much more exciting. A bit like, some sort of old school wrestling walkout when, no one knows who's coming next on Royal Rumble, and it's like they're coming on, the music's on. I just think that I think you're right. I think there's I think we're almost these days too with social media and all that, maybe too oversaturated with mock drafts, and I think we're seeing it too much now. Whereas it's sort of you sort of towards the end you sort of get sick of the mock drafts, you get sick of the podcasts which talk about mock drafts, you just want to get into it and get started.
Yeah, ban mock drafts. It's basically because they've got an NFL channel that's on for 52 weeks a year, and the problem is that the sport is only on for 20, and they've just got to try and say controversial things to try and make it entertaining, which is the whole wrong way of doing journalism. I'd rather they just showed some brilliant NFL films all the way through.
Of course, the think of draft one more thing. Also, the draft's in Detroit next year. Of course, it's hosting the drafts. That should be a nice. I say a nice thing for Detroit, but I don't think anyone's going to want to go to it this year. If it's in Detroit, are you going to want to go there to watch it?
Yeah, it's not a sort of place you'd go. I talk about Detroit. I think one of the biggest things that happened in the off season is that they retained Ben Johnson as offensive coordinator, because I think he is a quiet sort of genius that complements Dan Campbell's sort of personality so well. And Aaron Glenn stayed there as well. They talk of both of them leaving. And I think that continuity in those key positions is absolutely crucial. And I think Ben Johnson, I mean, he could have possibly gone to the Texans, but he just thought, do you know what? I'll just wait another year, because he's built so much at Detroit. And one thing I've not talked about as well is getting Teddy Bridgewater at quarterbacks, giving him a contract. It's a big upgrade, I think. I've always quite liked Teddy Bridgewater. And I think I'm still not 100% sold on Jared Goff, but because he's got the best. They've got Detroit and Philadelphia, probably the best defensive lines in football. And so any quarterback's going to thrive there. So I feel a lot more confident if Goff goes down. You've got a proven, experienced quarterback who's played different systems, who's able to go in there and do a good job and not crumble, as we have had in the past, where our backup quarterbacks have been abysmal.
Which David Blau was the most recent one I could think of.
I mean, awful. Absolutely awful. And Tim Boyle, I'm surprised that the Jets have got him, because he's terrible.
Yeah,
he was one of those people. Sorry, I'm talking over you. He was one of those people who plays at the the what they call those games where it's just the 17th game of the season, where it's just a dead rubber, and he'll go out on the last game of the season, he'll throw 400 yards, but he's playing against second stringers, and then he suddenly gets a contract. The Lions go, yeah, get Tim Boyle, because he had that great game against no one who gave a shit.
Actually, a friend of yours, I sort of recently become friendly more on the group chat with him. Hugh Cole's actually met Tim Boyle recently in Broadway in New York. Of course, he's out there.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so he's doing Back to the Future.
Back to the Future, yeah. Tim. Yeah.
So he met. It was him. Aaron Rodgers was one of them, and there was two others, and I forget who these players were that were there. It might have been CJ Uzomah, but he was saying that they got talking about Arsenal, because I think he was an Arsenal fan. So I think CJ Uzomah asked him, what are your thoughts on Arsenal season? And they go, oh, they start stuff well, but they crumble towards the end. Apparently he then looked at Aaron Rodgers and goes, a bit like Green Bay.
What, Hugh said that?
Yeah, apparently. And then apparently Rodgers just laughed and then just clinked his, whatever he was drinking, whether wine or bottle of beer, whatever, at Hugh Cole's drinks. I thought that was an amazing story. I heard literally last week or two, whilst I was away traveling. He came through on a group chat. He was saying this, and that's an amazing. I think that's an amazing story, because if on his Instagram he got a picture with them all backstage, the whole crew were there. So yeah, Tim Boyle was a bit of a hard knock legend last year. I think it was David Blau, the one who had a wife in the Olympics. Whichever one.
David Blau, yeah, Blau, yeah.
I remember him being a bit of a hard knocks sort of icon. It was obviously Dan Campbell's the main one. I've never seen a head coach be on the intro video of Hard Knocks before. It was all normally it's the players or it's fans, but I think he's that superstar, Dan Campbell. But I think you're right about Ben Johnson, because you see so many of these OCs have a great year or two. They'll get a head coaching job. But I think for him, it's great. And for Lions, it's great because you've lost Staley, but apart from that, everyone else seems to have remained in the coaching staff. And I think that will really help you in a division that I think is awfully exciting. There's no clear favourites. I think having them all there, they're keeping his sort of schemes and all that there, I think is only a good thing. And I think Jared Goff, I think he is good. I don't think he's great, but I think he's good. And I think you guys could be trying for a good season. And speaking of which, we're going to head to our final segment, which is going to be our win-loss-tie section. If you aren't familiar with the format listening at home, we give each fan each game where they answer each game with a win, loss, or tie answer. Now, you already mentioned you think you're going to lose week 1 in the season opener against the Chiefs. So week 2 is a home game against the Seattle Seahawks.
I rate the Seahawks, actually. I think we're going. I'm going to say lose.
Hey, so week 3 is another home game, but this time against the Atlanta Falcons.
Win.
Win. Okay, so week 4 on the road, Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers.
This is going to be another win. We're going to do those pricks.
What are your thoughts on Jordan Love? Do you think he's going to come good, or do you think he's going to potentially struggle?
It's that typical Packers, isn't it? It's
Mm.
almost like the same thing over again, the whole Favre Rodgers thing. They just incubate them for 3 years, and he's probably going to be brilliant. It can be annoying. It can be. It's going to be he can't. I mean, can you technically win Rookie of the Year if you haven't really played? But I think it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be every time they sit a quarterback for a season, it does seem to work.
Mm.
Look at Mahomes. Well, I'm basing it on Mahomes and Rodgers. That's what I'm basing on.
Yeah, well,
But I think it'll work. I think it'll be good. Not as good. I mean, I don't think he'll be as good as Rodgers, but I think he'll be serviceable, sort of mid-tier quarterback.
I agree because the law of averages suggests that one day they will do this and they will fail. Week 5 is a home game against the Panthers.
Win.
Win. Okay, and then week 6 on the road to the Buccaneers.
Another win. See the streaks coming in now. Now we're 4-2 now.
Yeah, it's a good start. Week 7, a game I'm actually going to be going to on the road to the Baltimore Ravens.
I think we'll lose that.
Okay,
It'll be that Frick Tucker will score another incredible field goal.
Another 69, 70-yarder.
Yeah. You wait and you watch it. You'll see it go over, and you'll remember this conversation. Say yes, Marek predicted this, a game-winning field goal from Justin Tucker.
Well, sadly, I might have to leave towards the end because I'm trying to do a challenge right for our channel where I go to 2 games in the same day. So
Oh no!
So it's going to be basically I'm in Philadelphia. I get the 8:30 train to Baltimore. Arrived about 10:30, 11, and then 1 p.m. the game starts. And I got a 5:20 p.m. train back to Philly. Gets there 6:45, and then the game starts at 8:10. So provided all the trains run on time, then I should do it. But that means I may have to leave probably end of the third quarter, depending. I think it's likely like a 45-minute walk from the station. So get an Uber would be like 10 minutes. Yeah. So I think hopefully I should do it. But yeah, I think if that happens and I've missed it, I'll be awfully annoyed with myself.
Oh, it's gonna happen. Right, let's keep going.
So week 8 is at home to the Raiders.
Win.
Okay. So that means you're 5-3 going into your week 9 bye week before your week 10 road game in LA against the Chargers.
A tough one, but I think we'll win after the bye.
And then week 11 is a home game against the Bears.
Win.
And then week 12 at home again against the Packers.
Another win.
Oh, I'm liking this start. Week 13 on the road, Superdome against the Saints.
I think I lose that one.
Okay. So then week 14, you once again playing the Bears, but this time at Soldier Field.
Yeah, we'll win that one.
Okay, so that means week 15, you're currently 9-4 as you play the Denver Broncos at home.
Win.
Wow, okay. Week 16, on the road to the Minnesota Vikings.
We always seem to lose. I think we'll lose that. We always seem to lose one to the Vikings.
And speaking of always losing, next up, you're playing the Cowboys on the road in Dallas.
See, I think we'll win that one, and then we'll lose. We always get done by them in the playoffs by some dodgy call. Always the Packers and the Packers and the Cowboys get so many calls for them in the playoffs. We got last time we lost in the playoffs was basically a dodgy holding call, I think, against the Cowboys.
I think I remember that one with they reverse a PI call. I want to say that was
Yeah,
years.
it was two really dodgy calls on the last. It really, I think when there was a face mask they didn't call or something. I can't remember, or maybe that was against the Packers. There's always against the Packers and the Cowboys. The refs are ridiculous.
That's what America's team does to refs. But like
Yeah,
years ago in the Fergie Man U at Old Trafford, you just knew
yeah.
that would happen. And then finally, Week 18 is a home game against the Minnesota Vikings.
And we'll win that one.
So that means that you'll finish with a 12-5 record.
Yes.
So with that, you'd assume that would win you the division. If that wins you the division, how far does that get you, and how far will you go? I should say in the postseason.
Providing we don't meet the Cowboys in the so that'll get us. I keep forgot. So now it's just all divisional. It's all the wild cards are 6, isn't it? 7.
Yeah,
I always get mixed up, and the top team goes through.
yeah.
So I think we'll win. We should be playing a wild card team, so we should win that. We'll win the first one, and it'll be the first game we win the playoffs.
And then you're losing the divisional.
I think.
So
I mean,
yeah,
I can see us getting to. I can see us getting to the championship game and losing.
okay, I like that.
I think that's a possibility
I
because
think,
the NFC's who is there? Eagles, 49ers.
mm,
I mean, they're the big two, and I don't really think there's any other side. I think the Seahawks are good as well. Everyone else in the South is in a weird sort of transition phase. I think the Saints might be quite like, but yeah, I think we could get to the championship game.
I think you could because you never know how seeding works. The Eagles could pace the 49ers in a divisional round. You know, it could be the case where that happens. And I think, I think definitely in that conference, I think it is wide open. And it just takes 1 or 2 injuries for the Eagles and Niners for that to open up. You know, the Eagles could lose Jalen Hurts, or they could lose one of their players, or the Niners could lose George Kittle, or they could lose Fred Warner. And that I think both are fairly well open for different reasons, but I think the NFC, I think, is wide open for a team like yourselves to make that run. And I do think it's, I do think that I do worry about maybe it's the mentality changes. I do worry about that. Maybe it was I don't know, but I think everyone would love to see it happen. I think unless you're, Vikings, Packers, or Bears fans, I think most NFL fans will be certainly behind you, like they were with the Bengals a few years ago for not winning many playoff games. So I think yeah, you guys would be. I think you have turned to everyone's second favorite team in the last year. Everyone loves Dan Campbell. Well, everyone loves Jamal Williams. He's not there now, but everyone loves the line. They love the story about how you've not won in so long. And I think, basically, it's like what the Browns were until they got Deshaun Watson. So I think you guys, yeah, I think it would be a great story, and I would love to see it.
Who are your predictions for the NFC Championship game then? Eagles,
Well,
49ers.
I'm gonna leave that because I'm gonna actually got a predictions episode coming
Oh,
at the end of
no.
August. I will tell you off camera who my prediction is.
Yeah.
But that is where we'll end the episode for today. So thank you once again, Marek, for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you want to find out more about me, why not check out my YouTube channel? Or if you like walking, which many of you won't, go to CoolDudesWalkingClub.com. And I do walks on YouTube. It's pretty exciting. Thank you.
And also, if you like paintings, you do some art as well on your YouTube channel. Is that still?
Oh, yeah, there's a load of old shit on there.
Yeah. And also, you can find, if you go really back down the archive, you can find Marek Larwood teaching Hugh Coles or Jordan Michaels how to play basketball.
Yes, you saw that.
Yeah.
Me and Hugh in a video that he made. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good video and I enjoyed it very much. But yeah, this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, Detroit Lions season preview. I've been Andy. This has been Marek Larwood, and we will see you guys for our next season preview, which will be the Jacksonville Jaguars. See you then.